Well, hello, that's me again. Today is June 17th. It is Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. And let's start with news, so to speak. We will start with this is very indicative, actually, that when even Bloomberg begins to say, and the Bloomberg is a lying sacks of you know what, and they have been supporting the Ukraine and this terrorist regime since the get-go, reporting some things which cannot be verified at all, which were pretty much made up, but even they begin to suddenly say that Ukraine bid for Global South support falters at Swiss summit. India, Brazil, Indonesia, South Africa among non-signatories, or whatever the heck was this communique which they were trying to present there, which really very few people paid attention to. And actually there was also other countries which withdrew later their signatures, and here is the video of Bloomberg reporting on this, that Ukraine fails to broaden support in war against Russia from Global South. Well, at this stage the only support Ukraine has is the support obviously by the combined West, and how to put it politely, this is not very good situation for the combined West either, because Mr. Peskov yesterday stated straightforward that Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky is not the person with whom it is possible to record agreements on Ukraine in writing. Legally, it will be illegitimate, Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov told journalist Pavel Zarubin. So that's pretty much describes the situation, and I have other news which are not good for Ukraine, and the combined West desperately is trying to get out of this whole situation now. And I will explain later why they are trying now to get out. It's the fact that actually Rada, which is the the parliament of Ukraine, not that Ukraine is in any way could be considered even relatively democratic, it is the right now military dictatorship and totalitarian state essentially. But even rather, the parliament of Ukraine, their legitimacy runs out in August. So after that, who are you going to talk to? And that's very interesting. But of course, we have to understand, anybody who will be willing or wanting, what have you, to talk to Russia will be merely avatars. They are the people who, have their strings pulled by the United States. Not even Europe. Europe is nobody's. And that is why when you, how to put it politely, this guy, I mean, this is not even funny anymore. He is nobody. France is nobody. As I already stated, remove their independent nuclear deterrent, which is essentially minuscule, and you have what's left, maybe Airbus, couple of French automakers, that's about it. And so here's this guy who, I don't know what his family affairs, evidently he's always, overly excited and sometimes even desperate. And speaking on Saturday at the so-called summit on peace in Ukraine and Switzerland, Macron advocated involving more countries to try end the conflict with Russia. However, Moscow was not invited. So here's this guy who talks about that all of us are committed to building a sustainable peace. No, it is BS, everybody knows this, and such a peace cannot be a Ukrainian capitulation. There is one aggressor and one victim. Well, actually, this is precisely what is happening in terms of the capitulation of Ukraine and, how you achieve capitulation. You either create such conditions that country wants to capitulate, or you simply physically annihilate it. And if we go today and take a look at armed forces of Ukraine and how they are doing on the front, you can see yourself that military personnel killed and wounded, 1,745 for yesterday. We have another 12 tanks and APCs, just taken out of order of battle, 46 armored vehicles, 56 artillery and mortars. So The slaughter continues on an incredible scale. Russians continue to move deeper into Kharkov area, and so because of that, we have this clown. And here is basically what could be only described by the, well, it's only desperation. And the guy, Jens Stoltenberg, he wouldn't be allowed anywhere near serious weapon system because basically the General Secretary of NATO is a political figure, and it's the guy who, again, is all, controlled by the United States. So he talks about this. He comes out in this fluffy rhetoric. NATO holds consultations on putting nuclear weapons on alert. Jens Stoltenberg refused to go into operational details about how many nuclear warheads should be operational and which should be stored. First, you have to understand what the guy is. He has the economic degree, and he won't be able to understand what is the combat control of the nuclear forces because nobody will allow him anywhere near into the only one country in NATO which really matters in terms of the nuclear weapons, which is the United States. And the United States actually has its nuclear weapons constantly on alert, as does Russia. And this alert called, well, usually it's an immediate readiness to launch. And guess how it's done? It's done on the ground-based silos. And of course we have the what is called the naval nuclear component, naval nuclear deterrent. In the United States, these are the strategic missile submarines of the higher class, which are on combat patrol in the immediate readiness to launch nuclear weapons. Same goes for the Russian Navy and Russian ground silo-based nuclear deterrent. Russian submarines of Barrier class, which go on the combat patrol, they are in the immediate readiness, as are people in the ground silo-based nuclear deterrent ready to launch too. And Mr. Stoltenberg obviously doesn't understand what he's talking about, and he doesn't. Why, then you may ask, he talks about this thing. Let me tell you why he talks about this. Because there is nothing more NATO can do. So what he comes up is to describe, as it was previously, with all this that we allow now them to strike inside Russian territory, all this rhetoric, repeating which is actually, military common sense and modus operandi of any strategic nuclear deterrent. Well, I don't know how French do it, but as I already stated, French do not really matter that much because, they are pipsqueak economically and militarily. And then we have, as this hasn't been enough, so explaining that, basically Stoltenberg BSing people because everything they do, and the only level of skills they have is PR. So they have to cover up what is a catastrophe for NATO, not for Ukraine. Ukraine is already destroyed. Whatever will happen after that, it's just a matter of, Russia dictating conditions, and whatever they say, it's gonna be, signing up for Russian conditions. Russians might get a little bit soft and sentimental, and may give a little bit here and there, but that's about it. So there will be no Ukraine in NATO, in European Union. Sure, let them try to apply for this. They may ask Turkey how it is going. And other than that, we have none other than Mr. Kuyat. General Kuyat, he was Inspector General of NATO forces, unlike Jens Stoltenberg, who is the guy who wouldn't know the difference between ground launch and air launch missile. Mr. Kuyat was actually the guy who was commanding the joint force in Europe of NATO. And he says that ex-NATO General Kuyat on the Ukraine war. The US de-escalates, Zelensky would have to follow suit. A further escalation of the Ukraine war is not in Joe Biden's interest. The US is slowly aiming for a compromise. A guest article by Harald Kuyat in the Berliner Zeitung. You can go and read it, but I can tell you that, it's behind the paywall, but he already tells that the United States desperately looks ways out to crawl out of this whole situation, because it has no resources, nor it has a good level strategic thinkers and strategic planners who can actually arrange anything which would fit at least some kind of United States desires. But hey, too late now. Remember Mr. Putin saying that NATO doesn't have much time, or well, primarily United States, before it can save the face. After that, Russia doesn't care. Evidently, they procrastinated, I think. So, and I don't know how deep they are in the not face saving situation or, territory, but United States is definitely there. Pure, for example, French and their independent nuclear deterrent, I mean, as I already stated, it's not as significant. For example, just to, as horrible as it sounds, and you have to understand it sounds horrible, if France, for example, to attack Russia with all its nuclear capabilities, which are only there is only one branch of them. It's a naval, lateral fund strategic missile submarines, 4 of them. Russia certainly will be damaged, no doubt about it, but France will cease to exist as such. So and Russia wouldn't even spend after that 5 or 7% of its nuclear deterrent. That is the level of the disparity. But of course we have this guy, this clown. Remember the guy who, told us that, just about, Challenger tanks, just gonna go out and, run over the Russian recruits, as he said, and well, how to put it politely, this dude strikes again in the Telegraph. And how to put it politely, I don't know why Telegraph, which is tabloid, but then again, you know what, there are normal people do not work in British media, all of them, there's no exception. Times, I mean, whatever, the Economist, Financial Times, they're a bunch of morons and cretins, basically. So, and he writes this Hamish de Breton Gordon, remember, the Challenger guy, and all that Putin's nuclear arsenal is crumbling. Ukraine can take it out for good. So he wrote it 3 days ago, and yeah, this is pretty much was the level of the people who in Pentagon and CIA, what have you, and MI6 especially, who told those stories that Russia will, just crumble, especially after those, economic sanctions, which were supposed to actually completely destroy Russia. Well, you know the outcome, and you know how it is going, and it is not going that well. But then, of course, if that hasn't been humiliating enough for the combined West, and especially with their learning curve about special military operation, we have now, oh my God, French general giving the interview to the Defense One. And French, of course, as you might expect, with their 200 Leclerc tanks and capability or ability to field probably about 2 to 3 brigades of their combat-ready troops without any ability to sustain them. France simply has no resources to sustain any serious fight, and not that French have any winning record in the 20th let alone 21st century. But here we have the situation that the French general talks about, with I know it's with a name like this. I mean, he shouldn't be in any kind of military position, but hey, French army head Schill talks force modernization, Ukraine war lessons. Well, yeah, there are a number of the French corpses already in Ukraine, and we know this, and that is why Macron goes bananas, and yeah, he needs to cover up those French coffins which arrive, and he is free to deploy whatever more French foreign legion and what have you. They will be all killed and delivered to France, maybe paraded for the Olympic Games in Paris. But French Army Chief of Staff General Pierre Schill has led the land force since July 2021. Well, and yeah, led force where? We know where, but we'll kind of, reserve our opinion so far. And he was implementing large-scale modernization effort called Scorpion that includes new connected armored vehicles in a shift to network combat. He oversees a budget that increased 12% in 2024 to more than 10 billion euro and a force of more than 110,000 military personnel. So, well, how to put it politely, this force, yeah, as I already stated, even if to imagine, and of course you have to understand, only about quarter of this force is actually the combat ready force. It 2 weeks, 3 weeks in the real combat. And what is this Scorpion, so-called Scorpion modernization effort? Well, let me remind you a little bit about Scorpion modernization weapon. It used to be called Future Combat Systems. Now it's called something else altogether. And remember this? Oh yeah, this is, of course, you can recognize striker brigades. The whole idea, which is not a bad idea, essentially, of having those network connected vehicles such as striker and obviously armored other types of the armored vehicles and M1 Abrams tanks into the combat network, which is really fine. It's nothing wrong with that. It's really cool. The problem, of course, there's only army in the world which actually running these operations, and it is Russian army. In reality, these systems have been, and using all those big words like neural networks, artificial intelligence, all those catchphrases, it never worked, and it would never work in real combat because it will be completely jammed. And then, of course, those armored vehicles in real war, they do not have much, how to put it politely, life left for them if they encounter serious army. Russian army is way more serious than that. And again, the NATO armored force is absolutely at the dead end. And the reason it is at the dead end, because it can operate with only one thing, which is embedded. I mean, it's completely in there. And these are, of course, field manuals written by the United States. Well, actually, these are pretty much in many respects same field manuals which are written in NATO countries too. And as the result, we have this Mr. French General Schill talking about, this whole situation, while of course he has to keep in mind that in 2021, this whole idea before the start of special military operation, they talk about, in March 30th, 2021, that US Army won't repeat mistakes of future combat system, General Murray exclusive. So, well, what he said that those advances should make it possible, military leaders say, to coordinate sensor, command posts, and weapons. Again, yes, when you fight Afghanistan, sure, that will work. When you fight in the real combat combined arms multi-domain operation against peer or better than peer, well, you remember I already talked about the TRADOC article and parameters. They estimate of 3,600 casualties daily, and the amount of hardware which will be wrecked, I mean, it's going to be, well, very large. And obviously, as a result, during the jamming, electronic warfare, and things of this nature, yeah, you're not going to get a real network as it is prescribed or described in all those wonderful papers with the big words in all those, magazines, and selling this BS to, American public or Western public. So Mr. Schill, yeah, I'm sorry, that's his name. He talks about the first challenge is that of equipment interoperability. That is the capacity to act in concert in spite of different equipment. This is about designing and producing natively interoperable equipment. On that point, communications networks are key. Yes, they are. But yeah, you also have to consider the fact that they will be suppressed, at least most of them. As it happened to the Starlink, and that is the whole other story, which somehow kind of disappeared from the front pages of the Western press because, yes, Starlink has been completely suppressed. Those damn Russians with their backward electronics, In this respect, the level of ambition of the CAMO partnership, between the Belgian and the French units of the motorized brigade is remarkable. There's nothing remarkable about that. Yeah, they will try to interoperate, by establishing the single network over the the, well, pretty much ragtag force. I saw Belgian army, okay? That's a joke. I mean, well, any kind of middle level combat readiness, Ukrainian brigade makes Belgian army looks like amateurs. Well, they are. The units in the field will be interchangeable without any technological operational obstacles. Sure. In addition to the combat systems, Belgium and France collaborate in the field of operational concepts, education and training. And here comes the question: what can they possibly educate and train? And Mr. Shield, the general, as I already stated, single Ukrainian brigade commander can give him an intro into the real operations to such level which Mr. Shield never heard about. And well, we know now that most, not all, but most so-called intel which pours into NATO, especially from Ukrainian side, is complete garbage. The only thing which they can do is basically depending on their ISR capability, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities of the United States, to get some telemetry, some imagery, some basically record of the signatures, electronic signatures. That's about it. The rest of it, they don't know a thing there. Obviously, they lost some Patriots, crews. They lost number of other so-called advisors. They will lose more. So each time when I hear about the guys from NATO talking about operational concepts, I cringe. I mean, they don't even know what real operations are. So, and he continues, but here comes his remarkable notion, so to speak. And the guy talks about that vital importance of electronic warfare, intelligence superiority, and the need to control information to influence both national and international public opinion has been confirmed. So what can I say? Yeah, we know. Actually, the only public which is completely in the dark around the world is the Western public, which have been basically fed copious amounts of BS and propaganda, none of which has any basically grounding in the reality. And the whole thing about it was how to basically cover up not only the loss of face for United States, and let alone some chihuahuas like France, but it is how to actually deal with the situation which they have now on their hands, which they created completely on their own due to their military, social, economic, and other illiteracies, which are, I mean, endemic in the system. So he said about that it makes it more difficult for adversaries to conceal intent, setups, and movements when he talks about ISR. Yeah, absolutely, this is the war of the 21st century. France doesn't factor in it because its industrial capabilities are minuscule compared to Russia, and it will never produce anything like the number of the, for example, UAVs to which Mr. Schill refers to than Russia, which she produces them now in tens of thousands. So, and well, actually Russia outproduces NATO combined in that respect. And so it continues on and on and on when these guys try to, use those fluffy words, big words, operations, interoperability, operational concepts. So, yeah, it's all crap. And the reason it's crap because until you get into the actual brigade and up level of the operational planning, you have your staffs who operate on the battlefield and who operate especially with the armament or the arsenal which Russian army operates with, it's all useless. So yeah, and can we say that NATO operational concepts are bankrupt? Absolutely. You cannot fight war using field manuals of the United States, even if you have the equipment, table of operation and equipment of the United States. You just can't. It's not designed for that. And the United States, well, it put itself into this position completely on its own volition, because it's all was fantasies. Fact is, and some people say that, oh, even before that they were able to do this. Well, remember Vietnam, please. Okay, so let's not go into this anymore, and well, I probably will, and reiterate this point over and over again. Maybe it is necessary to reiterate it, because obviously we are looking at a complete implosion, not only the mythology, but actual, things, the structure on which which the whole idea and pretense of the Western power was built around. Same as, for example, just if you probably remember, a few days ago, Mr. Mohammed bin Salman said, it's over with dollar, and recycling of the dollar, and Saudis buying treasuries, and Saudis beginning to produce sell oil for all kinds of different currencies. It's over, guys. And the fundamental of this dollar, reserve currency status was, of course, a mythology primarily of the American military power, that it can go anywhere in the world, projected power, and make something like Libya. They destroyed it, but point is there was no allowance, so to speak, to anybody to use anything else but dollar in paying for the, oil and things of this nature. Well, it's over. It's over. So, the brave new world, it unfolded. So, and if that hasn't been enough now, what we know that Mr. Yegorov confirmed in his wonderful report from Havana is that actually submarines of the Project 885 Yasin class, they do carry zircons. So basically that what you had when Mr. Admiral Gorshkov and Kazan entered the Havana port, the condition was not to have the nuclear weapons on board. They already carried zircons. So, and that changes the whole game. If that hasn't been enough, now look at this. We have these guys. Russia and Egypt naval exercises. Of course, the Times of India absolutely doing the, what's the name of it, the journal thing, Russia to enter war against Israel. No, Russia is not entering the war against Israel. It is totally Middle Eastern conundrum, so to speak. United States, let United States face the defeat of Israel on its own. Russia has no business there doing any kind of fighting. Granted that we all know what is happening there is complete genocide. No, Russians do deliver actually, humanitarian aid. That's not been, of course, discussed in the Western media, but yeah. And as you can see yourself, doing the joint maneuvering in the Mediterranean, the silhouette there in background is that of Marshal Shaposhnikov. This is good old Udaloy class, NATO Udaloy class. In Russia, it was large anti-submarine warfare ships of Project 1155. And as you can see yourself, this thing has been completely just overhauled. And you can see yourself now all those wonderful 3S-14 vertical launch systems, bunch of the Uran, which is X-35 anti-shipping missiles, and yeah, Shaposhnikov also carries zircon. It's a zircon carrier, apart from the other cruise missiles, including extremely long-range 3M14M caliber, and obviously anti-shipping supersonic Onyx. So Russia begins to move a little bit of its fleet into all kinds of the areas of the world ocean to demonstrate that, yeah, we can kill you. And those ships are primarily not really to just attack the land. They have the capability. It's not a very heavy salvo. It's probably, a dozen missiles of caliber class. What they can do though, they can sink any navy, or even combinations of the navies, and those navies will not know what hit them. And now that we know that Yegorov confirmed the situation with the Kazan carrying the zircon, this becomes absolutely a horrifying ordeal for any kind of the NATO Navy, which have been built around, well, how to put it politely, around the perceived, at that time in 70s, still kinda real capability of the US Navy carrier battle groups, and those super carriers, well, they do not matter that much anymore, because in real war, God forbids, they can be sunk even without using the nuclear weapons and nuclear-tipped anti-shipping missiles. And again, they wouldn't even see it, when with the zircon range of 1,500 kilometers, it is way twice along the range at which the carrier battle group can really see anything. So, and what can I say? Good luck trying doing this. And so, and this is sort of everything I needed to tell you today, except for this last thing. Rod Stewart, you know what, the guy is old, and I love Rod Stewart, you know, he famous voice and all that, but in Leipzig he shouts fuck Putin and shows Mr. Zelensky and, you know, a yellow-blue flag of Ukraine, and he is completely booed there. You can see this video about it, and but in Berlin, obviously, it was different reaction, but yeah, you know what, Rod is a great guy. I mean, you know, he was decent footballer. He was what, Glasgow Rangers or Celtic? I don't remember what part he was. And you know what, a great voice. Why to tarnish your you know, legacy? I don't know. But then again, you know, they're artsy types, they're stupid. It's like David Gilmour is a wonderful, you know, guitar player, and he's an integral part of Pink Floyd as we know it, you know, post Sid Barrett. The guy supports Ukraine. Good God, yeah. You know what, you could be a great musician and great composer and still to be stupid. And most of them are. Well, the same as goes to Hollywood, but Hollywood is the cesspool of the perverts and, well, criminals. Many of them are downright criminals. So it's sad when people go out and parade themselves as clowns. It's sad. I love Rod Stewart music and all that, you know. And I, of course, remember him even before that, so it's like, yeah. Well, this is what I wanted to tell you guys today, and as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee and two, maybe three. Okay, so this is it for today, guys, and have a nice week in front of yourself, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye bye.